Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ. Could the Colstrip power plants be closing sooner than first expected?
Its future in the hands of a Texas judge working with the bankruptcy of Westmoreland Coal, which has a supply contract with nearby Rosebud Mine.
In a court filing from last week, Northwestern Energy urged the judge to reject a proposal from Westmoreland debtors to end a 40-year-old sales contract between the plant and its Rosebud Mine.
Now, if the judge allows the contract to be nullified, it could force the closure of Colstrip units 3 and 4 by the end of this year. Now, that's 7 years sooner than originally thought. Westmoreland Coal is trudging through a massive $1.4 billion bankruptcy marked with dozens of debtors wanting to recoup the money they're owed.
Owners of the power plant say that ending Westmoreland's contract would increase energy costs for consumers and hurt the bottom line for both the mine and the power plant. Environmentalists even chiming in, saying a rapid closure of the plant would be very harmful to the Colstrip community. Westmoreland owns 3 Montana mines, the Rosebud Mine at Colstrip, part of the Absolica Mine near Hardin, and the Savage Mine at the Montana-North Dakota border.
Another step forward for a proposed controversial gravel pit here in Billings.
That project has sparked outrage from many residents in the area, but despite the backlash, the county commissioners unanimously approved the project, allowing First Mark Construction to move forward with its plans for a gravel pit near Oscars Park.
Commissioner John Oslin says despite concerns from residents, the county could not prohibit First Mark from using the unzoned land.
On unzoned property, there are a lot of things that are allowed, and gravel mining is one of those things. And as both our legal team and planning staff have said, we don't have the ability to regulate that. That's regulated through the Department of Environmental Quality.
Now, the project will have to get more approvals from the DEQ before moving forward. Since announced, residents have protested, citing concerns about traffic, flooding, groundwater, and decrease in property value.
In their decision, the commissioners attempted to address some of those issues with conditions to the approval, including a mandated route for all trucks to take to help alleviate traffic concerns. But despite the conditions, many residents are still concerned.
It's going to be scarred for generations. There's no timeline. They say 10 to 15 years, but it's going to be more like 30 to 40 years. When you look at Billings, that's that last piece of property that we could all take a breath and look at and go, you know what? Let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing.
First Mark Business Development Manager Ed Walker has said the project's expected to last 12 to 15 years, and then the company plans to restore the land to include a lake for the owners of Oscars Park to develop.
A Roberts man arrested today after he crashed a pickup truck into the Carbon County Courthouse building. Take a look at this video posted on the county Facebook page. No one was injured, but Tig DeVries faces a charge of felony endangerment and was taken to the Yellowstone County Detention Facility. The crash happened just after noon in the building that houses the courts and the sheriff's office in Red Lodge. Now, the sheriff says authorities believe DeVries was targeting county offices.
As punishing cold temperatures are expected to plunge even more tomorrow across much of the Midwest and parts of the Northeast, millions of people are being urged to take precautions to stay safe. At least 6 cold weather related deaths have already been reported. Charlie DeMar is in Chicago with the latest.
The dangerous freeze is slamming the Midwest with weather cold enough to kill.
It is treacherous.
From Chicago to Sioux Falls and so many points in between, wind chill temperatures are forecast to plunge to 30, 40, 50, and even 60 below zero.
If it's not something you absolutely need, we would advise to stay home for your safety and those that are out and about having to be out in the weather.
In downtown Duluth, Minnesota, where wind chills hit 30 to 50 below on Tuesday, city workers gave out hand warmers.
It's going to be brutal tonight. This is just really cold.
Duluth mail carrier Dave Mayu says in weather like this, he wears several pairs of gloves, pants, and hats. The Postal Service has suspended Wednesday mail delivery in several states, including Minnesota, because of the cold. Here in Chicago, residents are bracing for more wind chill and record-breaking lows where it will feel colder than parts of Antarctica. Across the city, Chicago city buses are being called into service as homeless shelters. Michigan State University canceled classes for Wednesday, as did countless school districts around the region. Heavy snow combined with wind and sub-zero temperatures are creating havoc on the roads. First responders in Fargo, North Dakota rushed to the scene of this weather-related accident. And ahead of Super Bowl Sunday, Atlanta is feeling chillier than usual. Temperatures in the 30s this week. Charlie DeMar for CBS News Chicago.
And we're going to check in with Bob McGuire. Bob, we've been hearing polar vortex a lot lately. What is it and where is it from?
Well, it's actually an old saying that's been around for quite some time, but it's just recently got some good wordplay on the news. But what it is, it starts off, we know there's no sunlight in the North Pole in the winter, right? And so all that cold Arctic air settles up there about 30,000 feet and starts falling down to the ground. So what keeps it up at the North Pole? Well, the jet stream. It interacts with the jet stream, and the jet stream goes around the pole, keeps all that cold Arctic air locked up at the top of the globe. What happens if the jet stream starts to slow down? Then it starts to wobble a little bit. Then the next thing you know, you get a little chunk of cold Arctic air starting to slide down Canada, and then eventually it starts making a little bit farther towards the east and towards eastern Canada, and then it wobbles so much or slow down so much that cold Arctic air eventually starts sliding into the northern Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, and also the New England states, and eventually some of that cold air drops all the way down to parts of Florida. But for this year and for Montana, only the extreme eastern edge of Montana is catching some of that cold Arctic air, or that polar vortex. I like to call it an Arctic intrusion. Russ, Jeanelle?
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, the latest cold snap is also putting a freeze on mail delivery in parts of Montana. Tomorrow, mail delivery and collection will be suspended throughout the eastern part of the state. A representative for the U.S. Postal Service could not tell Q2 an exact range on the cities affected. If you'd like to check on your area, there's a link with service alerts in this story at ktvq.com. Now, wind chills across the region again could reach as low as 40 degrees below zero.
Well, a bill that would make it illegal for doctors to help patients take their own life had its first hearing at the state capitol today. House Bill 284 would open doctors up to possible homicide charges if they were to comply with patients' wishes and speed up patients' death by prescribing a lethal dose of medication. Assisted suicide is not explicitly legal in Montana, but a ruling in the 2009 Montana Supreme Court case, Baxter versus Montana, created what some call a loophole that allows the practice. The bill's sponsor, Republican Carl Glimm of Kyla, says it sends the wrong message to people about suicide as a solution.
Every session, this body takes up legislation and spending bills to try and curb the suicide frequency in our veterans, our youth, and our Native American populations. This bill is an opportunity to send a consistent message about suicide from young to old, from healthy to sick, that it's not a good option.
Some of those who spoke in opposition to the bill see things differently. Roberta King is the daughter of Robert Baxter, the plaintiff in the Montana Supreme Court case that allowed physician-assisted suicide. She testified at today's hearing, saying the choice should be left to the patient, not the government.
People in Montana believe that we know how to take care of ourselves without government interference. We trust that our doctors will give us the best possible medical advice, and the Montana Supreme Court was right to agree.
Well, a similar bill to outlaw physician-assisted suicide failed in Montana during the 2017 legislature.
As the state of Washington declares a state of emergency due to an influx in measles cases, health officials here in Montana are on high alert. Measles is a serious respiratory disease that involves fever, cough, and a rash of tiny red spots. State health officials say there are no confirmed cases to hit Montana yet. The last case was back in 1990. Barbara Schneeman with Riverstone Health says experts are watching the disease because society is so mobile. Health officials are warning medical providers to be on the lookout for symptoms, especially because infected people may or have been known to recently frequent public places, including airports. Now, the governor of Washington state has declared that state of emergency due to 36 active cases. We're
going to switch subjects and talk about the Super Bowl for a second, because Ozzie the grizzly bear made his pick for Super Bowl 53 at Zoo Montana.
Yes, he did. For the 7th year, Ozzie chose between the two cakes representing teams headed to the Super Bowl. The cakes were made of fresh watermelon, topped with whipped cream, and adorned with strawberries and grapes.
Well, the team's logos were made of edible paper, and the cakes were identical to avoid one looking more appealing than the other. And you can see there, Ozzie chose the Patriots. Game kicks off at 4:30 on Sunday, right here on Q2. And if Ozzie's correct, his record will stand at 6-1. It's pretty good.
We'll just see.
You sure they didn't put a fish in the Patriots cake?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, coming up, it's always a great event, the Winter Special Olympics in the Bitterroot Valley. We're going to take you there just ahead.
Plus, rock and roll legend Bob Seger electrifies the crowd at Metro Park tonight.
And in sports, the Cats and the Grizz set for a Saturday basketball showdown. Scott checks in with both sides.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.